What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another Vintage Kenner Star Wars market update. I am back in town after a really fun trip to Disney down in Florida. We got to go to Galaxy's Edge, ride all the rides. We went to Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time, but I'm exhausted. But I wanted to get back to business as usual. And before we dig into some really hot items that have sold over the last week or so while I was away, I wanted to say thank you guys for getting me to 3,200 subscribers. And as promised, I did the drawing for the special action figure set 3-pack acrylic sliding case from Case Shells. And I did that drawing last night when I got home, and the winner is Christy Smith. Congratulations. And we're going to go ahead and launch right into another one. We've got a sliding case that fits standard 3 3/4 inch figures, whether they're vintage Kenner mint on card or vintage collection. But this is another case shell sliding acrylic case, courtesy of Tom Hogan over there at Case Shell. So thank you so much for the channel giveaway. All you got to do is get me to 3,300 subscribers now. While I was gone, you guys already got me to 20 or 3230 or something like that. So we got about a little bit less than 70 subscribers to go. So tell your friends about the channel, like this video, comment below in this video, and you're automatically entered to win this sliding acrylic case. I'll ship it anywhere in the world at my cost, and I'll do the drawing when we hit 3,300 subscribers. That's enough about channel updates. Let's go ahead and dig right in. There were a number of awesome items. I included loose graded items, as well as mint on card, as well as some packaged mini rigs and toys and all kinds of good stuff. So we've got a 12-back A Luke Skywalker AFA 85, and we knew this one was going to go for big money. This one closed about a week ago. It kind of ended right as I was leaving town, so I couldn't cover it in a market update before I left town. But what an awesome item. 12-back A Luke Skywalker. I don't know why they put blonde hair there, because I think all the 12-back A's were blonde hair, if memory serves. I don't know. You'd have to ask a 12-back expert, but it was punched. But, I mean, give me a break. What an amazing item. It sold for $7,375. So just complete insanity. Now, this isn't like a SKU on the footer, so it's a little bit later 12-back A, if there's such a thing, really. But the CIB sold this. They're obviously affiliated with AFA, Tom Derby and those guys, but what an amazing item. Unbelievable. $7,000 and change for that one. And I'm going to cover a number of CIB items here. This one was another one, a 12-back C R2-D2. This was AFA 75 plus. I mean, you want to talk about a figure that has really gone up in value. Last year, you could have picked up a 12-back C in this grade for maybe $900 to $1,000. It's easily doubled in the last 12 months for a 12-back R2-D2, 12-back C. I mean, I specifically remember some 12-back Cs that were 80 grade overall, so higher grade than this, that were selling in that $900 to $1,100 range. And now it's $2,025. I mean, it's just insane what R2-D2 collectors are willing to pay for these. And you can see why I got the 75 plus. It had some pretty heavy creasing on the back there that didn't show up really on the front of the card, so that's kind of nice. And so it's going to get, I think that if that crease had shown up all the way through, that card score probably would have gotten dropped to a 70 instead of 75, but it got a 75 plus overall, just because those spider veins on the back didn't kind of break through to the other side. There was a small one too on the bottom, really all over the bottom there. It's got some spider veins, but still a beautiful item, unpunched. No price sticker, $2,025. So it presented a lot better than a 75 plus. From the front, it looks more like an 80 or 80 plus. But the spider veins on the back are what really caused that 75 plus grade. Here was another insane item. This was a 3-position laser rifle, 1978. So this is a very early laser rifle, and good luck getting this out to retail nowadays. I mean, parents would go nuts having something like this on retail shelves that looks so realistic, but it's got that great shot of Luke Skywalker there with the EE11 or whatever the model number is. Laser rifle stock has 3 different positions, and you can see that curve to the box there. So very unique item, and you can see the back of the box here. Just some awesome. Look at that kid in the back. Look at the hair. Classic 70s haircut. Just an amazing item. So it was graded 70 plus overall, shrink wrapped, 3-position laser rifle. Role play toy, 1978. I can't, for the life of me, remember any of these ever coming up for sale graded like this. especially in an auction. And it sold for $2,151. Nothing for me to compare that to, but 63 bids, $75 shipping. So, roughly about a little over $2,200 for this 3-position laser rifle. But a very, very unique item that you'd never see for sale at auction. CIB also had this one, a no toe dent Hong Kong AFA 80 Plus blue snaggletooth. And you can see the little bit of wear there on the front of the toes there. This one graded a little bit loosey-goosey, in my opinion. 80 plus for that, I think, is pretty generous. Pretty generous. Usually AFA and even UKG and CAS, they grade blue snags super, super rough. And, this one had some wear to the belt buckle. And the hands look good. The body looks great. It didn't have any of that torso discoloring that we've talked about in past market updates, but the belt buckle and the toes especially had quite a bit of wear. And for it to get an 80 plus, I thought that was a pretty generous score. But nevertheless, it scored at 820. The final sales price was 821. So that to me is a little lower than where we've seen this figure sell for recently. And I think it's because it's probably a little overgraded, quite honestly. It presents, quote unquote, worse than an 80 plus, in my opinion. It really grades like an 80 or 70, even a 75 plus with that wear. So I think that's what's really held the price down, is that the issues that caused this to not get a higher grade were so noticeable that, collectors maybe it's like, well, it's an 80 plus, but it really presents more like a 75 or 75 plus, because the torso is great. I mean, usually that's the biggest knock on these is the torso or hand wear. But that silver is just so noticeable, that silver wear was so noticeable that it held the price down. Because 821, quite honestly, I've seen some that are UKG or AFA 70s, or excuse me, 75s that have sold for higher prices than this. So I think that's kind of what happened there with that one. Here's another beautiful one. This was an AFA 75 21 back die-cast Darth Vader TIE fighter. And again, this is one where it's the exact opposite of the blue snaggletooth. This presents a lot better than a 75. The blister score was 80. The vehicle score was 85. And I'm not sure what caused it. It's got a little bit of wear in that upper left-hand corner that I guess was enough to bring the score down. But that is pretty harsh scoring. And the price I thought was actually pretty good, $637 plus $20 shipping. So let's call it $650. That's a pretty good price for what presents much nicer than an AFA 75 Darth Vader TIE Fighter die-cast. It presents quite a bit nicer. It's a great card back. Got all the other kind of die-casts on there. So a really nice item. Now here's another one that I've got this one in my collection. This was a U80 Meccano Jawa. And this is from SW Seller. And we've talked about this seller a lot. And I know a number of you have reached out to me asking me to cover their items that closed here a couple days ago. And, there are some items that this seller lists that seem to sell for higher than normal. But I think the argument can be made for a number of these that I'm going to show you, and so, even some I didn't show you, that I think the prices were actually kind of in line with some of the other prices we've seen over at CIB or just, random sellers on eBay. But this was a yellowed uncirculated 80 Meccano 20 back Jawa. So this is kind of the rectangular or square card Jawa. This is one I've got in my collection. Now I've got a clear blister, and I bought this maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember exactly when, but I paid almost the exact same price for this. I mean, almost to the dollar. But mine is a clear blister. But I would say that this one, with the exception of the yellowing, presents better than mine. I've got kind of a little hunk that's kind of pulled out of the side of the card or wear on the side of the card. And it doesn't present nearly as nicely as this one, in my opinion. This one presents quite a bit nicer, even though the blister is yellowed while mine is not. But anyway, that sold for $9.92 plus shipping, and I think I paid $9.95. Or it might have been less. I can't remember. Chris over at Rogue 5 will correct me on that, but it might have been $8.95. I don't remember. But anyway, I think that price is in line. I mean, given that it's been 6 months later, and it is an uncirculated item. So somebody sent in a sealed case of these Meccano square card La Guerre des Étoiles Jawa, and I think that's kind of in line. And it sold at auction, 16 bids. So a few others that this same seller had a double telescoping Luke. Now this had an older style case. It didn't have kind of the cooler case, and you can see the wear around the saber there, around the tip. So it wasn't a super updated case. It did have a little bit of wear around the belt, but a very nice example of the telescoping saber, and it came with the CIB letter of authenticity. So it was graded in 2012, so a little bit older grade, and it sold for $2,026. Now we saw another one of these with an updated case, AFA 85, that sold closer to $3,000. So I would argue that this price is, given that it's an older case and an older grade, that the saber doesn't present super nice. It's got, a little bit of wear on there, but I mean, it's an awesome double telescoping, high grade Luke. And, $2,026, given some of the other data points we've seen, I think that's pretty fair. So I don't think that's an overpay at all. Here was an AFA 85 Leia. This one does seem high to me. $610 is really high. That's a high number. Now, it was the black hair and belt, which I don't know how much rarer the Hong Kong black hair versus brown hair is for the first 12 Princess Leia. We just talked about that in the video that I made for while I was away that came out yesterday, so you would think I would know better. But I mean, I think that we saw some CAS graded 85 pluses, maybe even a few 85 AFA grades that sold for $350 to $400, going on memory again. But I think that 610 seems a little high to me, but not terribly so. I mean, we've seen a number of examples that have been in that 500, 550 range, so it's not like it's a gross overpay, but it is on the upper end of the scale there relative to some of these others we're going to talk about. Here's another one. This was an 85 plus Vinyl Cape Jawa, older style case. Very similar to one I've got. Now, I've got an 85 grade, not 85 plus, so this is the next tier up. And we know what happens with these very desirable figures once you start getting into the 85 plus and 90 range. It's multiples, right? It goes up way, way higher than just a simple going from an 80 to an 85. Going from an 80 or 80 plus to an 85 is a lot different than going from an 85 to an 85 plus. It just gets really difficult to find, especially these Vinyl Cape figures. It's very difficult to find these figures in high grade. And 4,150, I've seen some on Facebook that have sold for that price. So it's not that far out of line, I think, with some of the others we've seen, or at least that I've seen online. I mean, I've seen some super high grade CAS and AFA graded Vinyl Cape Jawas that have sold right in line with this price. So I don't think that's a gross overpay either. This is another example where this one actually sold for less than some other examples we've seen in past videos. We saw a loose graded AFA 85 hollow cheeks Sand People Tusken Raider. So this has got those hollow cheeks. And these typically, to my knowledge, came on Return of the Jedi card backs, like 65 and 77 backs. This has got the updated case too. We saw one with an older case that was only an AFA 85 that sold for like $700. This one sold for $552 at auction, 29 bids. So that's actually a higher grade, and it sold for about $150 less than the last one I can remember off the top of my head that was lower grade and an older style case. So, I know that I bagged on this seller for potentially, maybe some shenanigans going on, but all of these prices are kind of in line. And here's another one. This one, 85 plus Death Star Droid. Now, I bought an AFA 85 Death Star Droid from this seller, and I paid about $200 for it, maybe a little higher, 220 maybe, somewhere in there. This was an 85 plus. It sold for $348. And I know that we've seen some 85 pluses that CIB over at AFA. They've sold some that sold for $550 and change. So $348 is very fair, I think, for an 85 plus grade Death Star Droid. That's a really nice example. The eyes, no scratching to the figure like mine did, but, maybe some spray issues on the shoulder, the lower portions of the shoulder, not a lot of paint spray there. The chest had quite a bit of kind of scratching going on, but, these photos are super high def, so it catches every single flaw. Here's another one. This is an 85 plus R5D4, the 1978 mold, and that one sold for $356. I mean, it might be a little high, but not by much. Not by much. We've seen a number of examples that are 85 grade selling that 250 to 300 range. So 356 for an 85 plus, I don't think is out of the ballpark. Another one, this one sold for 172. This was the Power Droid 85 plus. I mean, that's a very, very high grade Power Droid. And 172.50 is a steal, in my opinion, for that figure. 85 grades can sell for 150 plus. So 172.50 plus shipping for that, I think is very fair. And here was an uncirculated 85 plus Yoda that sold for $262. That is a great price for an uncirculated Yoda. This is the light green with the orange eyes, orange snake. 262 is kind of in line. I mean, you know, for my AFA 85 over a year ago, I paid, you know, close to 175 or 200. So given what the market has done over the last year, plus it's an uncirculated 85 plus, that's a very fair price. This one seemed a little high to me, but it's not, you know, not terribly so for a high grade Yoda. This is the brown snake dark green Hong Kong. So again, very high grade and updated case. That one sold for $437 and change. So I'd love to know what y'all's thoughts are here. But this is the Pac-Man eyes, the darker eyes, and updated case. 85 plus Yoda. I mean, I know for a fact that we've seen a number of high grade Yodas sell in and around this price point. So I'm not terribly surprised at any of these prices. Now, he had another one that I didn't include in this video that I wanted to talk about. I forgot to include it, but that was an AFA 85 plus Bosk loose graded. And it sold for, again, I'm going on memory, but it was about a 600 plus. And, you know, that sounds high, but, you know, I documented one that was an uncirculated 90. And this was 2 years ago, 2+ years ago, that it sold for 600 plus, closer to 700. And so, even the Bosk figure, I don't think was terribly outside of the range. Now let's go to the swing to the other extreme from the same seller. This is one that I thought was way high. And it was a very high grade admittedly, but this was the Made in Mexico Gamorrean Guard AFA 80. So the card was 80, blister 80, figure 85. Beautiful example, and this one again has the clear blister. So again, we've seen a few examples of the Gamorrean Guard sell here recently. Even with a slightly yellow blister that were non-Lily Letties. This is obviously the Lily Letty made down in Mexico. And, it's got this the standard punch. This is a bad photo. But, you can see down here, right above the Return of the Jedi in the lower right, you can see that factory punch. So that's how you can tell that it's the Made in Mexico, in addition to down here in the lower left on the back where it says Made in Mexico. It did have some kind of very light scuffing going on the lower right hand, on the front hand side of the card. That's probably, and the scratch goes all the way up the card, past the Gamorrean Guard card art. But still, a beautiful example. That's still $1,000. $1,000 is high. That's a high number. I mean, I was thinking it might go 500-ish. So it was double what I expected for that price. But again, if somebody wants just, it doesn't come up often for auction, admittedly, but it blew past any number I expected for a Made in Mexico Gamorrean Guard. But that's a very high overpay, in my opinion. Here's another one that seems high, but we've documented a number of examples that were kind of in line with this. This is the light green chest Boba Fett Hong Kong. This tends to command a little bit of a premium over the standard green. It looks the same to me, but I'm sure if I had one, next to, had it next to my standard dark green chest, I'd be able to tell the difference. But anyway, it had a little bit of paint issue down here in the lower right, on his left leg, down here at the ankle. Had a little bit of wear right there. You can see some bad overspray right here around the wrist. So, it was graded 85 plus, which seems very high to me, given the factory paint issues that came with it. That to me seems like an overgrade. That one sold for $990. That is to me, given, this is a case where I've talked about this in the past. Don't just look at the grade. If, the grade is 85 plus, and so you might freak out and want to overpay for it. But if you look at the hand around the wrist gauntlet, you can see around the pocket on his left-hand leg, he's got some discoloration going on already. It's only going to get worse, folks. I mean, it's only going to get worse. And then down here, you got some paint issues around the ankle. So, yes, it's graded 85 plus. The chest does look immaculate. The helmet visor looks immaculate. But it seems a little bit of an overgrade to me, given those paint issues. 85 is probably more in line, in my opinion, for the grade. But in all fairness, these photos are super high def, so I credit the seller for providing high def photos. But $990, we've seen some sell for that high, so I'm not, it's not terribly expensive, but it just seems like this figure is overgraded. And we talked about the blue snaggletooth. In my opinion, that's probably overgraded. So you really got to zoom in on these photos and decide, is it worth, number one, is it worth the price? And number two, does the grade match the figure? And I've got several examples in my collection that I think are overgraded. So it's not like it doesn't happen. If you collect graded figures, at some point you're going to buy a figure that is overgraded. Once you get it in hand, you're like, that's not really an 85, or that's not really an 80, whatever the number is. It's just part of the business. It's part of the deal when you start collecting graded figures. But here was another one. This was a no COO tri-logo UKG 80%. This one, there's several different variations. This is the dark belt with the unpainted dart and then the unpainted knee shin piece, the utility piece down there on his lower right. So again, you can have all kinds of different variations with painted dart and painted knee, things like that. But this is a really clean example. This one was sold at auction. It sold for about $600 US or 440 Great British pounds plus shipping. Got the nice, cool, updated UKG case. That's a really nice example of the tri-logo Boba Fett. Here was another one. I was thinking about this one. The money situation didn't work out for me, but this was a beautiful 41 back C Rebel Commander. It kind of sat low at a low price for a while, and the photos weren't great. They're just kind of weird angles, but a nice clear blister. The weapon was still attached to the inside of the blister. It was unpunched, no price sticker, and the grades were great on it. Where were they? The grades were 80, card 85, blister 80, figure 80. I don't know why I got the 80 figure score. Maybe just some discoloration of the figure because the weapon was still firmly attached to the inside there. But anyway, that sold for $640 on 6 bids. It really jumped up at the end. It was kind of sitting pretty low there, around 400-ish, and then it jumped, another 250 or so at the end. Here's another really cool one that I wanted to point out. This was pointed out to me by That One Time on YouTube. Make sure to check out his channel. He's got a beautiful collection of Luke Bespins, Luke Jedi Knights, Luke Farm Boys. He's got some graded play sets. So make sure to go check out That One Time on YouTube. And he pointed this one out to me and said, hey, you should bid on this. And I'm like, hey, I'm not independently wealthy. But this one sold for $2,606. It's just crazy. Ungraded, unpunched. But this is the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. And you're like, why did it sell so high? This 65 back. This is the Taiwan. So it's starting to give you some hints as to why it sold so high. But this is the molded face Luke. And so this is one of the more, other than like the Lily Letty, this is probably the most expensive figure variation for Luke Jedi Knight. So the molded face Lukes were Taiwan, and they came on these 65 backs, and he pointed it out to me, and I would love to have owned this, but this is a crazy price, and one of the higher prices I've seen for a molded face Luke, and it's just further evidence that we've entered kind of a new stratosphere for a lot of these figures. They just continue to command massive premiums versus, these really kind of harder to find figures. They're just commanding massive premiums. But here was the unpunched, really nice, clean. It was yellowed. But most of these 65 backs are going to be yellowed. But it wasn't terribly yellowed, and you can still very clearly tell it's the molded face Luke instead of the painted face. Beautiful figure. And let's see what else we got. This was another really cool one. This was a Star Wars 3-pack that had Luke Jedi with a blue saber. So a blue sabered baggy Luke, which we all know, the blue sabered version of Luke is a much more desirable Luke. It's got the Bausch and Lando skiff. And let's see what the label says. This was a department store multi-pack. And it mentions on the AFA label that it's the blue saber Luke. So the box got a 75. The wrapper's got an 80. Figures 85, overall 80. I don't know if I've ever seen one of these department store 3-packs with the blue saber Luke. So that is a very, very desirable item, and the prices reflected that. It sold for $2,445 plus another $30 shipping. So let's call it $2,475. 18 bids. So very, very cool item. And I'm sure that somebody who has a baggy focus picked that one up. Going back to CIB for a second, we had an AFA 80 plus Power of the Force Luke Stormtrooper. Really nice example. It looked like it might have had some crystallization going on around the head. Hard to tell there. The frosting that goes on with these figures, it very commonly happens on Luke's hair on these Stormtroopers, but hard to tell. But it was a graded 80 plus. Card got an 80, blister 85, figure 80. It was punched and yellowed, obviously, but it's just hard to tell. I can't tell without looking at better photos, but it does look a little bit crystallized there on the head. But it didn't stop the bidding. It didn't stop the price bidding. It jumped up towards the end. It sold for $1,950 plus another $15 shipping, 34 bids. So a really beautiful example. But I mean, it seems like the going rate now for a high-grade Luke Stormtrooper mint on card, whether it's the Palatoy Tri-Logo or the Power of the Force card back, it's $2,000 now for anything high-grade. Next is another really nice one. This was an uncirculated 85 Palatoy Clipper Cap 2. So this as the Cap 2, it's got Boss there. This is one I've got loose, but this is the really nice uncirculated example. So somebody sent in an uncirculated a case of these, sealed case of these, and so they got them uncirculated. Uncirculated 85 Palatoy Clipper. And you can see the multiple languages there. It's got the La Guerre des Étoiles Cap 2. So really cool item. That one sold for $459, 585 Canadian dollars plus shipping. And then finally, this is a price that really shocked me on the upper end of the scale. This was a CAS 85 grade Polish bootleg Darth Vader. No cape. I could see this price maybe if it had the cape or like the sword. There's like a He-Man, almost like a He-Man sword that often is paired with this Luke, a bootleg saber. But this one was graded 85, and this was a third generation Darth Vader, so not even like an early generation of it. So this kind of came out in 1995-ish. That sold for $360 plus shipping, plus $10 shipping. That seemed a little high to me, considering it didn't have the cape with it. But I'm not complaining since I've got a bunch of those. So that seems like a pretty big price, given that it's a third generation figure. But really nice, really nice. Anyway, we saw some pretty wild prices here while I was away, and I wanted to document a lot of them and kind of get caught up for you guys. And I hope you enjoyed taking a look at some of these recent sales prices. If you're new to the channel, welcome. As a reminder, be sure to subscribe, like this video, comment below, and you're automatically entered to win this case shell sliding case that fits any 3 3/4 inch standard mint on card figure, and we'll do the drawing once we hit 3,300 subscribers. Thanks so much, and I'll be back soon.